Now, description objects is what we are going to see now. So description dot create is the object, dot create is the method QTP uses to describe an object. When I say describe, how QTP recognizes the object? This is QTP object. This object is by default recognized as generic object. He doesn't assign any class. It's a generic object. If I use this method description.create, he creates the object, but it is a generic object. No class, no property values. Right? This is how he creates. Then when to use this, why we need to use this? When in an application, if the objects are dynamic in nature, for example, if you take any online retail shopping, or I'll take some examples using browser. Please ensure we will deal with now browser object. When we are dealing with browser, ensure QTP is opened first, then browser is open. You should not open the browser first, then QTP. Then objects of browser will never get recognized. Objects of browser are called DOM, Document Object Model. Document Object Model is the method all the browser are dealing with. All the objects of the browser are dealt with DOM methodology. DOM is the standard. That standard is all the browser uses that standard to recognize the objects of the browser. So first thing is to enable the add-in web. First QTP needs to be installed. QTP needs to be run. Once QTP is invoked, QTP loads the add-in into the memory. Each add-in requires 300 to 400 MB of space in the memory. Each add-in is loaded into the memory. Once add-in are loaded into the memory, the application under test when you invoke, he maps the add-in in to recognize the object from the application under test. If QTP is not loaded before the application under test, then application is loaded first. Those objects are already loaded into the memory. Then you are invoking QTP. QTP then loads the add-in to the memory. He may not able to recognize all the object classes because object under test or application under test already loaded the objects into the memory. Right? This is the reason you have to be very sure. First, in case you had a problem, browser is not recognized. When you are recording on a browser, no lines are got generated. When you are spying on the browser object, it is recognized as a win object. The first thing you need to do is close first QTP, close the browser, open the QTP, ensure that web add-in is selected. Then you get into browser, open the browser after QTP loaded all its component into the memory. That's a very important part. DOM objects has several ways to recognize. There are two important things that you need to understand. One is about simple HTML, learn through HTML. Second, if you are new to HTML, you can go through W3 Schools. W3 Schools is a good site for beginners to learn. Second, you need to understand XPath. XPath is another important parameter to recognize the object in QTP. XPath are all used in text extensibility if you need to use. Then you need to understand XML structure. There are certain structures are in XML format. Need to understand that. Then once you are comfortable, then it's easy for you to manage. In web application, most important part is the class, whatever they define, the class is user defined. So those classes, how you can define any class as you want, how to define a class, what is CSS file, how HTML uses CSS file what is tag, what is paragraph, etc. You need to, basic QTP needs to be understood properly. Very important. Ensure that you go through that as a preliminary prerequisites so that the understanding can be much better. So we are now talking about DOM object, document object model. QTP uses that as a base to recognize the browser. We'll talk about more about DOM objects in test extensibility session as well. Now I am into QTP. What I need to, or what I like to do is, in this Google, if you see, I say, now we are trying to explain what is description objects. When I say here Softsmith, when I type here Softsmith, in Softsmith you can see now there are a lot of links that came. Map for Softsmith, Softsmith offshore testing services, etc. etc. Now these links are dynamic. Dynamic in the sense based on what I type here. I now say open mentor. When I say open mentor, I get again a different links over here. So based on search criteria, what I get as my result are dynamic in nature. When it is dynamic, how do I manage such objects? Because I cannot now do record. It is not simple to record and then replay because the names of links are changing. What link is going to come, I don't know. So managing such things, you can use description object. Description objects, you can create object class. If you know the class, you can recognize the class, you can get all the information. To start with, in description object, we take home page of Google because the number of links will be less. In this home page, we try to recognize all the links on this page. First, let us understand, in this page, page is one object, browser is one object. So I am assuming now browser and page is already recognized. That is my first assumption. I will add those two objects into my repository. Once I come inside the page, I now try to recognize all the links from this page. That is my next job. Because I am assuming now these links are dynamic in nature. It is every time it might change. That is my first assumption. Without that assumption, I don't have to use description objects. So first thing, the page that I am going to access is dynamic in nature. The links are the child objects. We call this as a child objects. Within the page, all the child objects are dynamic. What I know is what type of object that page will load. I know whether it is images, whether it is links, whether there is a text box. I know those information. I may not know exact object that is loaded on image, exact object that is loaded under links. This is information is not clear to me. Under such situations, how do I manage with description object? Very interesting, very useful as well. Initially, you may get pained because it gives error, etc. Try to go through the recorded session frequently, understand what we are trying to convey, then it becomes very simple. Right, I will now take up with this understanding. Let us now move into description objects. So description object, I am going to use description as my object. Method is create. He will create an object which is a generic object, no class, no property. Then I assign the class for that object in case if I want to filter. Then retrieve all the objects we call it as child objects, matching to that class. This is my steps I am going to do. Matching to the class from the application under test. Once this is done, we will see how to retrieve the other properties of an object. This is what we are going to see now. Watch carefully, because here it is applicable for all the classes, all the objects methods, all the add-ins as well. I can create any add-in. Add-in has to be present. That's the only mandatory requirement. Now, sometimes my system might hang. Accept it. That's because of we are using so-called 6 Internet Explorer 6. Now, up to IE8, QTP supports, QTP 11.0 supports. IE7, IE8 he supports, he doesn't support IE9 as of now. I heard IE9 has lot of changes to the DOM concepts, so QTP needs to go through lot of changes, maybe required. Now, I'm back. We are into now description objects. I'm going to create, first is I open the QTP first, then I open the browser. I'm adding my browser object. Later, browser object also can be made dynamic. For our initial understanding, I am keeping browser and so-called page as in 1 minute. I am keeping browser and page object as static object so that I don't have to manage it later. I am just selecting now the browser. I have selected now. You can now see page Google. I want to add browser page Google. Web element is also getting added. I am fine with it. All object types only. Okay, let it add all object types. Fine. It is now adding. If it is element, only that element needs to be added. Now Google, you can see all the objects are added. That is fine. I don't need all this. I can delete as well. These are all the links that is recognized. Now I am deleting all these objects. What I need is page. So and Google, page and browser I have recognized. You can see now browser is recognized with creation time 0 because that is the first browser. Page, you can see now there is no description properties for both. Google also no description properties. Browser, page also no description properties. Now you can see how he manages that object. If I highlight for your understanding, he highlights the object. You can see that he is able to go to that page object. The way he recognizes now, the page class itself is sufficient for him to recognize. Browser class itself is sufficient for him to recognize because there is no ambiguity or failure in uniqueness on that object. So having understood that, now I am getting into description objects. In QTP, since it is an object, I declare it. I want child objects link, O-link I will say. All the O-link I want to create. So for this, I now set O-link as my object name. What is this object? It is description object. Description object is nothing but recognition object of QTP description. Once I say description dot, automatically create method appears because description object has only one method called create. I have now created the object. What is my next job? I need to recognize what is this object class, because description.create doesn't understand what the class of this object. If I want all the child objects, all the classes, then I can leave it as it is. I want only link object. If I want only link object, I need to treat this OLink as with class link. This class, when I am talking about the class, I spy on it, spy on one of the class. I now just spy on images. I am talking about the link that I am mentioning here, link images. So the link is the class name. You can see now properties, class name, link. I am talking about this setting this class, not the class that you are seeing below, GB1. I am not talking about that class. I am talking about class name link. I now like to retrieve the class matching to this link. To do that, he uses DOM concepts to retrieve. Now set OLink with MIC class. MIC class is what I am talking about. MIC class is the name of class space name. Dot, I am assigning the value to this MIC class. This portion is very important. You may not try to, you may really surprise how I used MIC class. MIC class is the default class name. This is the nomenclature QTP uses. So I use that OLink MIC class dot value. I now select it as link. This link L has to be capital because this is the way he recognizes. Small l if you use, he will not recognize. So OLink MIC class dot value equals link. Once I define this, now the OLink that I have set it under line number 2 is now acting as a link object. My next job is, having treated OLink as a link class, I like to retrieve all the classes of link matching to the link, all the child objects matching to the link into a collection. That collection is also an object, so I treat it as OLink underscore all. I like to collect all the child objects matching link into a collection. That object name is OLink all. Since it is a collection of objects, it is set OLink all. I am now collecting from where? From browser. For this reason, I have recorded the browser dot page. I recorded the page as well. Now dot child objects. Now using this child objects, which child object? OLink. OLink is my child object. Using this class and matching property of this object OLink, I now retrieve all the properties, all the child objects from the browser. This is what I like to do. Now first portion, very simple. This 3 lines is going to get repeated. Set OLink. I have created now I just made 3 lines. One, I am setting the OLink. For OLink, I make QTP to recognize that OLink as a description object. So I made it as description.create. Once I created description object, this is nothing but application under test object. I need to tell QTP this link is with the class link. I am defined link MIG class dot value. MIG class is a system defined value, so I defined it as it is dot value link. Once I define that, I am now using the filter to filter all the child objects matching that link property. We'll extend this with other properties as well. After this, I like to now retrieve all child objects of page matching to link. To do that, I have used line number 4. After line number 4, I need to see how many link objects are recognized. Since olink underscore all is an object, I use the method called count. Olink underscore all dot count will give me total number of child objects on that object olink underscore all. Listen carefully. Don't try to use your intellect now. Try to observe whatever has been communicated. Sometimes it is like x and y that we assume in solving an equation. Later we know exactly what the value of x, what the value of y. Because there are certain things created by the QTP designer, it is very difficult to give or understand why he used that name, why not other name. So these confusions will get resolved once you get familiarized with this object model. So for getting that familiarized, you have to repeat with whatever understanding you have, then slowly penetrate inside, then the entire architecture becomes easier. So it is very difficult to explain the entire architecture then come here because it is purely a programming background. So what I am trying to say is you need to remember 3 commands. One is description.create, easy to remember. MIG class, for any class that you create with description, use MIG class to set the value of the class. This MIG class is nothing but class name that you have seen in the SPY. Having said that, using this, I am treating it as a filter. Using that object, I am collection of objects from page matching to the link. I am putting it onto olink all. Now olink all is a collection. When I say collection, it has several objects, it has several properties. Now I have collected all the objects. I am now counting on how many link object I recognized. I am going to execute the script. Watch when it executes, watch the object. Sometimes we try to complicate ourselves because we try to understand more from the script. It gets evolved. More experience will evolve with more understanding. Don't worry about that. Now you can see there is a message box with 39. So totally 39 links are there. Okay. Next, I want to add more filter. Let us see now. Let me spy. For spying is important to understand the way the object is recognized. I now click on spy, select spy icon. Now in images you notice now class is GB1, right? I try to go to say advertising program or something. Here you can see now the class is not there. I go to Malayalam. In Malayalam you can see class is not there. Whereas if I go to maps, you can see again the class is GB1. So I want to filter within link only class matching to GB1. Please note, I want within links map or retrieve only class matching GB1. First type of run, it retrieved all the objects from all the link objects from this side. Now I am filtering it further. I want to filter only the class matching class with GB1. Only the class that is matching GB1 I like to retrieve. So what I want to do is, this is my filter. I now introduce one more called OLink object. To this object I want class. The whatever the property name that you see, I am just putting that class here. Value equals same spell G small letter GB1. There is no space, nothing. Now I am using now this is to add class GB1 as filter. On execution, QTP filters all child objects matching class. Make class I will use here, otherwise I have to use class name, make class and class, and then he retrieves the child objects. Now you see how he recognizes the number of links. I now select run, I click on run, he is now executing. He is now, first is he creates the description object, he creates the class, sets the class, he now sets the another class, now he collects. Now you come up with an answer. Only 7 links have matching that class. What is that class? GB1 is the class. What is the property? You can see link is the base class. Base class link, class property is GB1. I now recognize those matching value from this entire list. So message all count link olink all dot count gives me 7.